Scott Hartman, Deputy County Administrator. I'm going to lead us off on the public comment. We have received 18 public comments for this evening's meeting, and those have been emailed to the county board in advance, so you can see the written text. So without further ado, let me jump in. 4 years ago, on January 21st, 2017, I sat in a legal aid office with a woman who asked me whether the new president would allow her to seek asylum in the United States. I told her I did not know what would happen while President Trump was in office, but that her attorneys would be with her every step of the way. 6 days later, the first executive order prohibiting the entry of persons from predominantly Muslim countries was issued. Many attorneys, including myself, showed up at the O'Hare Airport for weeks to help families and friends understand why their loved ones were being held by federal officers without charge and without explanation. 4 years later, I am shaken by the bewildering cruelty our government imposed and continues to impose on other human beings for their unacceptable mistake of being born on the wrong part of the atlas. Perhaps within the next few days, we will see a trajectory of a new course in our immigration system. Again, I do not know what will happen while the Biden administration is in office, but I know I am here. I know who I am. I know how I serve. Cancel the ICE contract. Thank you, Amanda Garcia.
To the McHenry County board members, we are all in an unprecedented time in this country when more people are marching, rallying, and signing petitions for their rights, for the right to be treated with dignity despite the color of their skin or the land from which they come. On this day of national service in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., let us remember the bravery for which he stood for those that found themselves in the shackles of injustice. Quote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Never again can we afford to live with the narrow, provincial, outside agitator idea. Anyone who lives inside the United States can never be considered an outsider anywhere within its bounds." End quote. To continue the ICE contract is to perpetuate racial inequality and injustice within our community, to continue to dehumanize people for seeking the American dream or for the want of safety for their loved ones. We need to embrace who we want to be as a community, a people who sees the value of everyone instead of creating more divides and othering. I implore you to think of Dr. King and what we are doing by being involved with this ICE contract, to truly reflect on how working with a terrorizing agency is not in the best interest of all the people you promised to serve with your position of privilege. I implore everyone to vote to end the county's ICE contract and to take a stand you can be proud of. Thank you for your time and listening. Amanda Hall, Woodstock.
Hello. I believe that we are a community that stands for people over profit. The terror that ICE has over community members should be eliminated. All families deserve to stay together, not be ripped apart. Immigrant detention undermines public safety and destabilizes communities. In addition, ICE's detention system is corrupt and has resulted in the harm and death to countless immigrants, the majority of which are considered no threat by ICE itself. The number of deaths in detention centers in 2020 doubled from 2019. Half of those deaths were due to medical negligence. It is immoral and deplorable that a system like this exists, especially in a country that I grew up in and am now raising my own family in. I don't believe this disgraceful system reflects our values as a community, so I'm asking you to vote against continuing the contract with ICE. Thank you, Angelica Kraft.
Hello. I wanted to comment that I think it's important to end the McHenry County ICE detention, to end McHenry County's ICE detention center. As a community, we should be offering services and assistance to help the very people that this detention center is treating as terrorists to obtain their legal documents. They are looking to make a better life for themselves, not create havoc. Thanks for your time, Anna Huffman.
To whom it may concern, I realize I'm late here, but please consider this comment. The ICE Detention Center at McHenry County Jail is representative of racist, frivolous policymaking and a shameful way for the county to profit off the backs of individuals who need help most. ICE contributes little to keep communities safe, yet contributes greatly to human suffering, tearing families apart across the state and unfairly targeting those who seek refuge from political turmoil and unsafe conditions abroad. All people deserve asylum, safety, and assurance in a healthy, meaningful way of life. That is what America has always preached, yet this contract is an abomination of our country's morals and fundamental principles. It is our civic duty to end this cruel contract and to not only consider the ramifications it has inflicted on county and state residents, but to mend those issues and reunite all who have been affected. Thank you, Cooper.
There is a reckoning happening in this country. There are unprecedented numbers of grassroots organizations and citizens demanding the breakdown of systematic oppression, immigration reform, police reform, and the end of mass incarceration and the end of the prison industrial complex. ICE is one of the agencies that is under the constant scrutiny of the media and the organizations that are leading the fight for reform. Among the atrocities committed by ICE are claims of sexual abuse and the separation of young children from the arms of their families at our borders. Under the zero tolerance policy, ICE has separated thousands of young children from their families at our borders, resulting in many children being given up for adoption. In a series of court cases, many foster families were able to gain full custody of migrant children they were housing without notification or consent of their parents. Even after legislation banning family separation was enacted, many parents have been deported without their children, resulting in over 545 young children remaining in U.S. custody that may never see their families again because currently ICE is unable to locate them. I would like each of you to ask yourselves if you trust ICE. Do you want McHenry County to be complicit when, not if ICE is brought up on federal charges, for human rights violations? Does the dwindling revenue from ICE detention contract warrant the stain on the reputation of McHenry County? I implore you to do the right thing, put people before profits, be on the right side of history, and set an example for other counties and cities across the country. Vote to end the ICE detention center contract. Eva Baker, Woodstock.
Good evening, McHenry County Board members. Thank you for taking the time to consider the thoughts and opinions of your constituents. I'm writing asking you to vote to end the ICE detention contract. As I am sure you are all well aware, this country is going through very trying times. I believe that it is time for us as a country to do better. We have to evaluate our policies and move forward towards more just and equitable legislation and reform the systems that are not functioning to uphold the tenets that our country was built on. We can no longer imprison and criminalize immigrants and asylum seekers. I believe our new administration will be reevaluating immigration policy. I foresee changes that will utilize home detention, stop separation of families, and create a pathway to citizenship. These changes are long overdue. Be on the right side of history. Use your vote to say you will not contribute to or be complicit with the atrocities committed by ICE. Vote to end the detention contract with ICE. Neil Kagan, Marengo.
My name is Hans Tannhauser. I have lived in McHenry County my entire life, and I write this today to implore the county to cancel the ICE detention contract. I appreciate the need to make America's borders safe. I really do. However, the way in which ICE does this is not, in my opinion, humane. How we treat those that are powerless is a reflection on our society, and the deplorable way ICE detainees are treated are a damnation of the nation as a whole and a stain on the United States' commitments to liberty and justice for all. Until conditions improve internally in ICE, McHenry County should refuse to work with them. Hanstanauer.
The contract that McHenry County has with ICE, in which we as a community profit from a notoriously inhumane and immoral agency, should be terminated as soon as possible. The presence of this agency in our county is an intimidating factor to the community members who are targeted by ICE, many of which we all interact with on a daily basis, whether it be at the store, restaurant, or school events. Many of these people are also part of the essential workers that supported this country during this pandemic. The racial profiling that ICE has been guilty of in the past is also something that instills fear in the Latinx community that legally lives here. Lastly, it's just plain wrong for us to participate in humane misery for profit, religious or not. Jose Lopez.
To whom it may concern, I'm asking you to vote against the ICE contract. All families deserve the right to stay together instead of being ripped apart. Detention is not helpful, and it is just nonsensical and cruel in the middle of a pandemic. Please close the ICE detention center. Sincerely, Christian Wonder.
Letter to the members of the McHenry County Board. Please end the contract that McHenry County has with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Even before Trump, our immigration system was designed with enormous barriers and obstacles to any legal pathway to entry for people from Mexico and Central America. But people came anyway because they are desperately fleeing nightmarish conditions in their home countries. So they came without documentation, seeking a chance to have a better life for themselves and their family and their children. The United States has contributed to creating those nightmarish conditions. U.S. foreign policy has historically included substantial support for brutal Central America regimes and aid in crushing democratic movements. Most recently in 2009, when the Obama administration supported the overthrow of the democratically elected president of Honduras, sparking a wave of violence that has driven thousands of families north to the U.S. border. Our trade policy has helped keep wages low and unions weak, and NAFTA has directly contributed to Mexican migration across the U.S. border by dumping cheap surplus corn from Iowa and Illinois on the Mexican countryside. This resulted in impoverishing already poor farmers and driving them off their land. In addition, our failed war on drugs has militarized the U.S.-Mexico border, fed our appetite for punishing drug users instead of treating them, contributed to mass violence everywhere in Latin America, and rewarded drug gangs and cartels with huge profits and political power. So the nightmare that forces people to flee these countries are real, and our government bears significant responsibility for them. It is beyond cruel that people from those countries who come here in a desperate search to build peaceful and productive lives find themselves demonized, terrorized, and all too often detained and deported. I call upon McHenry County to cease to be a part of this atrocious and systematic evil. Mary Shizgren.
Dear County Board members, in 2017, I visited a man who was detained at the McHenry County ICE Detention Center. ICE agents had come to his house looking for someone else, but they detained him instead in front of his 2 young daughters. His traumatized wife had no other family in the area. Her husband was the breadwinner in the house, and she did not know how she would pay the bills. The man and the woman had both gone to high school in the United States. They did not have criminal records. At the ICE detention center, I cried as I talked to this husband and father through the video phone. He cried too. He was desperate to hear information about his wife and daughters. I told him that I knew that there were people in the community that were helping them. I told him I thought it was unjust and morally wrong that he should be detained for being brought to this country as a child without documentation. I told him I thought a 4th-generation resident of McHenry County. I told him I was a 4th-generation resident of McHenry County. I told him my grandfather, Eleanor Bulger, was born on the Bulger farm in McHenry, and that her father, Thomas Bulger, was an Illinois state representative. I told him that my grandmother used to write letters to a convicted murderer serving a life sentence because she believed everyone deserved compassion and love. I told him that she passed away, but she would have been opposed to what McHenry County is doing to undocumented immigrants. From what we know, her grandparents were immigrants from Ireland, who likely were just as vulnerable as undocumented immigrants today. I told him that this was not what we stood for in our country. I told him I was angry and so embarrassed for our country. I told him that we would take care of his family. He told me there were so many men detained just like him. They just wanted to take care of their families and felt helpless. Shortly afterwards, he was sent to a detention facility down south and then deported. Last I heard, he was still separated from his family with no possibility of reunification. This man's story is not unique, unfortunately. According to ICE detention statistics, more than half of the people detained by ICE in fiscal year 20 presented no threat. There is no public safety argument for keeping the ICE contract since the existing justice system is more than capable of handling those that do not pose a threat. The ICE contract is actually making our county less safe. According to the National Immigrant Justice Center, the evidence is clear. Policies of immigration control that promote detention and deportation make our communities less safe. Policies of welcoming and inclusion enhance the public good. I know that McHenry County makes a relatively small profit from the ICE contract, which I anticipate would diminish as even more rapid pace with the Biden administration's executive orders. Regardless of profit, I have faith that McHenry County will make the right choice and cancel the ICE contract. Sincerely, Megan Sullivan Skolnick, McHenry, Illinois.
I am writing to make my voice heard against the ICE contract held by McHenry County. These detention centers have no benefit except for the profit of those running the centers. These people being held away from their families serve no purpose except to destroy these very families. Why any system requires people to be held for an indefinite time while awaiting their green cards or a hearing makes no sense. It is inhumane on so many levels. Most of the people being held were holding paying jobs, supporting their families. Now their families are facing hardships with no way to overcome their situation. I most sincerely hope that McHenry County Board hears what so many of the community believe. Do away with the McHenry County ICE Detention Center. Donna Fowler, Woodstock, Illinois.
Dear McHenry County Board members, our group, Standing Up Against Racism Woodstock, continues to urge this board to end the ICE contract in McHenry County. With almost 900 members in our group, we stand up for equal rights for all. We hope this plea is heard. The practice of the ICE contract has been found to be fraught with human rights violations. With a new federal administration beginning this month, these practices will surely be investigated and not tolerated. McHenry County will be liable for what happens to these detainees, even if it is through the ICE program. Lawsuits for unlawful detention could have high costs to our county and town, not to mention the historical significance of participating in these practices. The contract also forces our local police to dedicate time and resources to ICE's work, and the cost is unknown. Mass deportations have been found not to promote public safety, but to destroy families and destabilize communities. Local cooperation with ICE decreases trust in law enforcement and as a result decreases public safety. Immigration status should not be used as a target. Our country stands under the belief that everyone should receive due process and equal protection under the law. With ICE practices, our most basic democratic principles are being ignored based on immigration status alone. Most disturbing is the toll on children who were born or mostly raised here. We are losing them through the foster care system and they become dependent on state and county resources. They experience severe trauma of losing their parents at a moment's notice and are often require mental, physical, and financial support. Immigrants are deeply rooted in American families and communities. They are our mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, sons, daughters, and we are losing them. According to the agency's own data, DHS has deported more people in the last decade than in the previous century. The result is millions of families being torn apart and massive human suffering. When a child loses a parent to deportation, the child, the family, and the society all suffer. The child's mental health, financial stability, and access to education are all put at risk. As a result, the community feels less safe and unstable. Cooperation with ICE has been seen to actually decrease public safety by further eroding community trust in law enforcement. Please vote to end the McHenry County's contract with ICE. Sincerely, Stand Up Against Racism Woodstock Leadership Team. Jill Pixley, Tracy Soto Garcia, Adriana Carvajal, Dee Myers, Eva Kagan Baker, Amanda Hall, Tomas Soto Garcia.
To the McHenry County Board. On behalf of myself and the immigrant community here in McHenry County, I'd like to express my thoughts on the continuation of the ICE contract at the McHenry County Detention Center. It has been difficult these past 4 years to see how people have been treated by our federal government and by that extension, McHenry County. I can't help but believe we are better than this. The immigrant population is only looking for a better life, a life that I and everyone on the county board already enjoy. Our county should be one that welcomes minorities, not detains them and treats them like they are second-class citizens. I have taken part in demonstrations outside the detention center, and I have seen the support that the community seems to show in support of closing the ICE detention center. The money made from this arrangement is, in the eyes of many, blood money. This county should be a county that welcomes the diversity that the immigration community gives us, not a place where they are afraid to move among us that have white privilege. I pray with the impending change in Washington on Wednesday, a new dawn will emerge where we don't build walls and obstacles to those wishing to find a better standard of living. McHenry County is filled with people who want to help others. It is evident by the number of nonprofits that I interact with on a weekly basis. I love to see our county government step up and join those nonprofits in welcoming rather than oppressing the immigrant population. I ask that you all please consider ending the ICE contract and show the rest of the state how important it is to treat all people with human dignity. It is what everyone deserves. Thank you. Rusty Koses, Richmond, Illinois.
The next message is from Sean Strange. Sean references an attachment, but we failed to find an attachment, so there is nothing to read.
Our next public comment was translated from Spanish. I work in a furniture factory. I work in the sawing portion, putting mattresses together. I saw firsthand the tremendous production that it was in a lucrative business, and all of that working to supply furniture for ICE detention centers. It is a well-rounded business where they want to make money at the cost of incarcerating human beings whose only sin is to so desperately look for a better life. But is it a sin, or are the laws not allowing us to do so in a legal way, in a fair way? This factory is in West Chicago. I made mattresses, but they also made bedside tables, lockers, etc., furniture needed for the cages. That seems to me to be an enormous injustice. Working there and finding out what they are doing, who is benefiting. The furniture was made of plastic so incarcerated people wouldn't be able to hurt themselves. I was scared. I was an immigrant working for very low wage without the benefit, sawing mattresses to incarcerate my own. Like I mentioned before, this is a well-rounded business for politicians and business people. We have to be realistic. We do not only need to do away with ICE in McHenry County, but in all of the communities around the nation. It is my duty to advocate to cancel this contract because me, my family, and my friends are not drug dealers, criminals, and rapists like Trump said, but an elementary school teacher, an accounting student, an electrical engineer, a computer engineer, a bicycle mechanic, a car mechanic, a lawyer, a construction worker, good law-abiding citizens that sing in the morning and listen to the news just like you do. We are here, we are many, and we count. We are also part of the community. Help make McHenry County and surrounding areas consecutively a place of joy for everyone, not a place that houses and terrorizes immigrants. Sonia Lopez.
Our final comment this evening. Board members, good evening. Thank you for reading this comment. Hopefully the reading of this comment coincides with the candlelight vigil taking place at the ICE Detention Center in Woodstock. The use of space on county property to make profit from the unnecessary detention of people trying to better their lives and raise their families is cruel. It is a waste of time, resources, when the people being detained could be productive wage earners and breadwinners for their families as they await proceedings regarding their status. Civil matters can be resolved without keeping people incarcerated away from their families and communities. When the time comes, vote to cancel the contract with ICE. Uplift migrant communities, cancel the contract with ICE. Thank you, Sherry Liskey. That's all your comments, Mr. Chairman.